in front of a judge, a crowd, and a smiling ex-lover. Have you ever witnessed a guy have his pride, heart, and entire legacy destroyed in less than 10 minutes? Lil Scrappy and the gunman? Bambi. Yes, the same Bambi who pledged fealty to him. On national television, just experienced that. Playing the part of the perfect wife, she broke down in confessionals, came to the courtroom calm as ever, and said, "I lied to protect him, but now I'm done protecting." She then suddenly admitted to having a full-fledged affair with Stevie J in the courtroom. As if he had just won a prize, Stevie smirked and remained silent. What's surprising is that this wasn't merely a confession, it was a trap. Stevie was aware that Bambi would lose it, and some even say he orchestrated it. The Grammy for Most Toxic went to him. Don't blink, because the Tristan Gordon incident seemed like a Disney movie after Bambi's revelations in the courtroom sparked hip-hop and love. In addition to losing his wife, he also lost the judge, the baif, the bloggers, and very likely Lil because the courtroom was unprepared. Scrappy attracted attention as soon as she walked in, not because of her attire, but rather because of her excitement. Unlike the Bambi we've seen begging for peace before reunions, she wasn't shaking or sobbing. When the court clerk asked Bambi to prove her identity, she had her nails sharpened, her hair slicked back, and her mouth full of ammunition. When Bambi's eyes briefly locked with Scrappy's, the tension between them was greater than anything else. Everyone froze when she told the court, "I have something to say." Even as the stenographer's fingers hesitated and hovered over her, the silence in the room exploded into 1,000 indiscernible pieces. "I understand you're under oath," she said, and the judge adjusted his spectacles. "That's why I can't lie anymore," she added. "When I was married to Scrappy," Bambi said. "Keys, I was in a relationship with Stevie J," a blogger in the back said as the phones rang out. "Accidentally, oh, she," with his jaw clenched and his fist gripping the table, so hard that the veins in his forearm seemed like ropes. Scrappy refrained from shouting. Meanwhile, Stevie J, seated haughtily in a fine gray suit, had the audacity to sneer without blinking or expressing regret. This wasn't just an affair. No, it was only the beginning, because the judge cocked an eyebrow and asked about Bambi. "To be clear, darling, that's when things started to go apart." His look spoke louder than words, just that same sly smirk that has ruined reputations and careers in the past. This wasn't a one-time mistake, but it started 2 years ago. First, emotionally, then physically, and finally it got strategic. Now that the room is tilting in, what does that even mean? Bambi says she and Stevie J had a deep bond during that. This is where things get messy. "I wasn't just venting." She said that we were organizing things. They were confiding in each other while filming a spin-off that never aired, and she disclosed that Scrappy was emotionally unavailable and distracted by music projects and club appearances. Reality TV distancing. But Bambi found opportunity in Stevie rather than just solace. "I wasn't simply cheating," the judge. "I was working on something with him behind Scrappy's back when she ruined my plans by removing episodes, storylines, and scene manipulation techniques." Then suddenly, in an effort to heighten the drama and alter public opinion, she and Stevie even arranged a therapy session, in which Scrappy was the pawn. Bambi claimed that there were several touching on-screen arguments, and that these were not just about love or lust, but also about manipulation at the production level. According to her, "I wasn't crying over him, but rather because she had just left and knew the camera was filming." Fans remember the incident at Stevie's house the previous evening, which went viral on Twitter at the time, and the famous kitchen scene where she sobbed at Scrappy's lack of support. It now means something completely different. The courtroom grew tense and combative, and nobody had yet spoken. His lawyer leaned over and whispered something coarse, and he nodded slowly and silently, his shoulders shaking slightly, his breathing labored as though he was trying to hold everything in. Bambi went on in shock, claiming that Stevie J had not only used her emotions to manipulate her, but also promised to help her flip the edit. According to Bambi, he had used his connections with producers to make Scrappy the cold, cruel husband, and Bambi the victim every time I cried on camera. "He told me, 'This is wonderful. This is your arc, stay in it,'" she said. "Do you have evidence?" The judge looked up, and Bambi hesitated for a second before pulling a USB from her purse. I have the voice notes, texts, and messages from Stevie telling me when to cry, how to behave, and you were in my house, he added quietly. Playing wife while developing scenes with that man, she said, referring to an actual USB stick. At last, Scratchy slowly and painstakingly stood up, just staring at her. I gave you everything, and you turned me into a story point. Not even the court told him to sit down. Scrappy lost it when Stevie leaned over to his lawyer and whispered something to him when Bambi didn't respond. The lawyer laughed. He looked at Stevie and slammed his fist down on the table. Do you find this amusing? You destroyed my family by taking advantage of my wife. After a while, the judge intervened and informed me, Mister, restrain yourself, Richardson, or I'll hold you in contempt. But Scrappy had already taken a seat again, so it was too late, Bambi went on, her fists clenched and her heart pounding, explaining how, during the height of their marriage, Stevie and Bambi had met behind closed doors at production houses instead of neutral residences. Locales that wouldn't raise suspicions. Places that couldn't be tracked down, and guess what? According to courtroom insiders, the court has already opened a financial misconduct dossier to investigate whether funds from the concert or promotional activities were transferred to a phony LLC connected to Stevie J partnerships were laundered through the LLC, where one of those addresses ultimately turned up in a recent tax document. This is not just a scandal, it's against the law. Worst of all, Scrappy's lawyer recently told the court that they have requested full subpoena authority to view talent contracts, production email logs, and confessional metadata in order to allegedly prove that Bambi and Stevie were falsifying. Reality TV content for financial gain is where part one ends because, according to ChatGPT, as soon as Scrappy's team made that motion, Stevie J stood up, marched to the front of the court, and turned to the judge, saying, "If I speak, they're going to require a brand new courtroom." Scrappy's eyes were fixed on Sir Stevie, as if he had just realized the devil had been sitting across the dining table. Stevie took a deep breath, looked around the room, and passed a folder across the prosecution's table, with the poise of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. For years, the courtroom froze, and even the judge leaned back, unsure whether to intervene or let Stevie finish whatever was about to be said. "That's Exhibit H," he stated, "and trust me, it makes that USB seem like kindergarten homework." Gasps. Whispers a woman in the second row let out a loud, "Oh my goodness." She clutched her phone as though it had suddenly come to life. The judge looked at his glasses and pondered what Exhibit H should contain, as they thought it would. The judge overruled, stating, "We're here now." Scrappy's lawyer objected immediately, claiming it was an ambush, but Stevie stated that emails, changed scripts, direct financial transactions, text messages between Bambi and a top VH1 producer, and yes, a few love notes, were never made public. Let's check out the contents. Detonated Evidence H, a 53-page document, detailed a fictitious paper trail that connected Bambi Stevie J to an executive named RL, who had previously worked as a showrunner for Aggressor, Absent Husband or Emotionally Unavailable Father, 1. Of the Love and Hip Hop Atlanta files showed that RL had approved scene pivots without Scrappy's consent, meaning that entire episodes had been reshot or altered to present Scrappy as the character. Bambi's confessional notes following the fight inside the steakhouse were allegedly real talking points that a producer gave her, telling her to cry when discussing Scrappy's absence, and Stevie should never be mentioned. Scrappy seemed to have been gut-punched by the entire network, and in addition to production manipulation, there were bank transfers from a phony wellness company called Glow Empire Co., allegedly started by Bambi, made almost $95,000 in the past year alone. And you can understand where the money came from. Receipts signed by Stevie J, and an advertising campaign linked to a VH1 account. However, things get worse. Screenshots of Bambi's direct communications with an anonymous identity maintained as Mr. Gray may be found in Exhibit H. By the time reporters outside the courtroom learnt about Stevie's burner account, the internet was already on fire. But inside, Scrappy seemed to be asking for confirmation of wire receipts and even a small bonus for staying in character for the reunion. Taping experts now believe that Mr. Gray was the source of the messages. Breathing difficulties, he proceeded to his lawyer, who had destroyed my reputation while using me to further his own, which is not just treachery but war. Stevie wasn't finished though, and he requested to read a Steve, instead of being a defendant or witness, took the stand as the villain, clearing his throat while holding the script and saying, "I came here because they told me this was entertainment, but what you guys forgot is that I didn't come here to be petty or to gloat." The judge paused, then nodded. While some of us watched our names being dragged through the dirt while the real snakes received checks, Bambi was crying backstage, so I shielded her and helped her change the story when she asked me to. I did this out of fear that you guys would make her the villain. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as the chest mic dropped, and then Bambi stood up or yelled, "Don't twist it, I was drowning because of you." Scrappy didn't see it coming since those closest to you never hurt you. You convinced me that if I didn't participate, while Scrappy just sat there frozen blinking like a man, Bambi was surfing on top of the wave we made together, and security had to step in due to the explosive tension. You told me that VH1 had banned women who didn't follow plot directives, and you said that Stevie interrupted with a sardonic laugh. You weren't drowning, you continued. The judge reportedly opened Envelope Emergency Exhibit I, looked over its contents, and furrowed his eyes after seeing the video of his own life and realizing that every hug was bought, every smile was made, and every confession was practiced. This court recently received a sworn affidavit from an anonymous VH1 A-list of names, including those of producers, editors, 2 cast members, and Mama D at the very bottom, was included in the affidavit, but the judge did not reply, according to a staff member who claimed that several members of the cast were instructed to harm Lil Scrappy's reputation in order to secure larger contracts and off-screen advertising deals for Bambi's. In fact, the document states that Mama D, Scrappy's own mother, attended plot coordinating sessions without Scrappy's consent. Bambi was supposedly offered her own spin-off in exchange for generating tension and providing her with phrases that would force Scrappy to go on camera. Scrappy then proceeded to the audience gallery where he begged, "Tell me it's a lie," while Mama D sat quietly the entire time. "Assure me that you didn't abandon me for your own plot." She said nothing. The judge broke up the session to take a break, but the harm had already been done. Reporters were informed that silence was more powerful than words, and that supporters outside were already shouting. His lawyer leaned over and muttered, "This isn't just divorce court anymore. This is grounds for a federal investigation." As he stared at the empty witness stand while Scrappy stayed in his seat long after everyone had left, live broadcasting from the steps and creating hashtags around the globe. Scrappy is the case being charged when the court reconvenes, and he is no longer a cast member. Tell me. The screen goes dark, but it's not over yet. When you're ready for part 3 Chudri Sab, I'll continue the explosion right where this cliffhanger ends. The court reassembled with the kind of tension that doesn't just hang in the air. The gallery was crowded again, with every seat occupied, and the judge returned with the same affidavit, which appeared to weigh 10 pounds more than when he had first received it. Supporters were chanting, paparazzi were flooding the courthouse steps, and YouTube was already flooded with live streams titled, "Lil Scrappy Courtroom Bombshell Mama D" misled him, and Scrappy entered more slowly this time. His vigor gone, the bounce gone from his step. The situation had spread like wildfire. The judge cleared his throat, and will go on to Exhibit I. His lawyer muttered something, but he didn't respond, instead looking directly at the stand. Not at Mama D, Stevie J, or Bambi, for what can you say when your mother and wife have been working behind your back? According to the document, there was a pattern of intentional plot manipulation, financial interference, and coordinated emotional abuse involving several named individuals. He then read the names aloud to producers, editors, 2 VH1 executives, and finally, the public figure D. Richardson. The audience gasped as Mama D stood up, her hands shaking. "Your Honor, I object to being characterized as you're not on trial, ma'am," she protested. But the judge cut her off, saying that if your statements turn out to be genuine, you may be. Scrappy then leaped to his feet and exclaimed, "You really did it?" He said, "You truly made me feel good," in a voice that was small and almost unintelligible. In a story, the antagonist? She shouted, "I tried to help you, but they were going to cut you off because your music wasn't charting, your scenes weren't engaging, and your Bambi calmly but icily added, 'He's not the one.'" The judge nodded to the beef, who put in a flash. "Disc with the label." "That's enough. Everyone will have a chance to speak, but first I need the court to hear this." I had to sell off your own son to keep the lights on when my marriage was failing, making myself look like a piece of trash. Everything changed when Exhibit J was shown on the screen. It was a time-stamped, watermarked, recorded video call that was obviously disparaging of a VH1 show. Voices may be readily heard over indistinct faces in a Zoom chat with 5 boxes. If Bambi provides the breakdown scene by Monday, we'll approve her wellness brand segment, said one voice. Scrappy's looking unstable. Let's lean into that arc, said another. Mama D, who always says something daring, was convinced to do so by a third voice. The courtroom goes silent when a voice that uncannily sounds like Stevie J declares, I have Bambi practicing it already. It's going to be Emmy-worthy, and then another video starts to play. This Zoom call is shorter. What if Scrappy flips for real? The producer asked, and we recorded it and allowed him to shed actual tears. When Stevie J eventually spoke up, he stated, You weren't a victim, Scrap, after they had witnessed me break and labeled it material. At the wheel, you were dozing off. Scrappy glanced aside, his jaw quivering as he clicked. I was raging at my wife on national television while you were texting her on a burner phone. Let's drive. And Scrappy lost it. You think this is a flex? You think manipulating people is power? The judge slammed the gavel control yourselves when security spoke, up about what she should wear. But as soon as the yelling stopped, the room became chaotic. With these new materials, Scrappy's lawyer took the stand and formally moved, Your Honor, we are submitting a petition for criminal conspiracy to deceive, and we are demanding federal review of financial records related to talent compensation that falsified contracts and misrepresented on-air mental health claims to manipulate the public translation. This wasn't. The judge nodded and granted the request, stating, I will submit this matter to the appropriate investigative authority. The case had moved from a courtroom dispute to a federal one. The mood in the room abruptly shifted, and what had started out as a divorce court evolved into something far darker. Grumpy wasn't only trying to take things or get custody, he was about to lead a court case against the very business that brought him fame, but the damage didn't stop there. A new leak that purportedly included screenshots from scene notes, Stevie X, Bambi's confession in bed, and the question, do we have clearance for Scrappy's breakdown? Surfaced as the court was about to adjourn. Bambi's emails included the subject lines, If Scrappy threatens to walk, remind me, and both. The extra fans were enraged when, within hours, advertisers started taking Bambi's picture and energy drink, Lagos off the VH1 trend. The website of a mental health app that had previously sponsored love and hip-hop posted a statement condemning the use of real suffering for pre-written entertainment. But the most ridiculous moment, after being quiet. For days, a tenacious person appeared on Instagram Live. He was alone in a pitch-black room with no lighting or glitz. It was no longer about TV when he stated this about anyone who looked at me. He looked into the camera and said, I hope it was worth it. He called me family in my face before selling my pain for views. Mama D, I love you, but you broke something in me that I don't know how to fix. Even though he ended the live without any music or promotion, just suffering, his legal team was not done, since the next day they filed a new case against Scrappy Visionary Media Holdings VH1. Allegations of money theft, contractual manipulation, emotional abuse, slander, fraud, and, the shocking turn of events, VH1 issued a press statement declaring a comprehensive internal inquiry. Episodes were canceled, the probe's production was halted, and Mona Scott Young stayed silent. However, according to sources, she became enraged after a voicemail allegedly captured her saying, "This is what happens when people forget." They can be used interchangeably. Everything will become clear when Scrappy's crew unveiled their own documentary series, Playing the Price of Reality, without hesitation. The narrator isn't Scrappy Steve J, and no one notices the stolen content, the contrived setting, or the contract clause until it's too late. Since reality TV was never genuine, he ultimately served as more than simply the opposition. He was proof that Scrappy didn't lose Bambi, his marriage, his peace, his reputation, or his legacy. Now it's time for retribution. Tell me when you're ready for the Tai Chowry Sab, and I'll make the most dramatic remark possible to make you want to stay. The truth is something far more dreadful. Thus, we now pose the question, was Bambi genuinely enamored with Stevie J? Or was she merely another casualty of a well-oiled machine of betrayal, backroom negotiations, and production meetings. Is he just another casualty of the first family, second system, and sly scheme, or is Mama D the genius behind his reality chessboard? Is he blind or just too loyal for a culture that values loyalty? Tell me whether Scrappy is finally improving or if he will fall apart, whether Stevie J is the puppet master or just the loudest rat in the basement, and most importantly, when Exhibit. K is dropped because there are rumors that the next leak contains unreleased video, a stolen laptop, and a tape from Mona Scott's workplace. After all, what we just witnessed isn't just a scandal or a messy breakup. Rather, it's a model of what people will do when the cameras roll, the contracts are close, and that to help us all get through this strange situation, you could post a remark with your thoughts. Click like and subscribe if you're as surprised as we are, so you don't miss any updates. Next, and turn on those warnings, because the next episode might bury someone for good. Even if the news isn't loud, stay messy and keep your cool, because this is Vel, where the drama is real. We're not in tune.